They use their media to assassinate real news. They use their schools to teach children that their president is another Hitler. They use their movie stars and singers and comedy shows and award shows to repeat their narrative over and over again. And then they use their ex-president to endorse the resistance, all to make them march, make them protest, make them scream racism and sexism and xenophobia and homophobia, to smash windows, burn cars, shut down interstates and airports, bully and terrorize the law-abiding, until the only option left is for the police to do their jobs and stop the madness. And when that happens, they'll use it as an excuse for their outrage. The only way we stop this, the only way we save our country and our freedom, is to fight this violence of lies with the clenched fist of truth. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
So it's been a week since I was declared a dangerous person and kicked off Facebook. Boo-hoo. But think about how totalitarian this is. Mark Zuckerberg is literally telling 2.4 billion people, a third of the Earth's population, what opinions they can and can't hold. They've actually instituted a new policy on Facebook where talking about me, unless you're denouncing me, is verboten. There've even been reports that photos of myself and other banned thought criminals, even when the faces are blurred, are being removed. Just like old Uncle Joe had his enemies airbrushed out of history. Hey, at least during the 2 minutes of hate in 1984, the citizens of Oceania could at least see Goldstein's face. Zuckerberg is literally copying Stalinist Russia. Think that sounds like hyperbole? No. This is samizdat for the 21st century. Samizdat was a form of dissident activity to avoid Soviet censorship. Dissidents reproduced censored material at great risk to themselves because, much like Facebook controls the majority of online discourse, copy machines, printing presses and typewriters were all controlled by the KGB. The KGB enjoyed a monopoly, so they were able to monitor and manipulate public discourse, just like Facebook's monopoly allows it to monitor and manipulate public discourse. So eventually, dissidents had to produce handmade carbon copies of information, much like we're having to create our own social media networks simply to reach any kind of audience. When individuals were caught reading or transporting banned samizdat materials, they were hit with harsh punishment. Some were sent to gulags, just as I've been dispatched to the digital gulag. As may you be if you share my banned samizdat material on Facebook. And just like yours truly, to prevent other citizens from embracing their ideas, samizdat dissidents were put on show trials and declared dangerous persons. And listen, I'm not putting myself in the same context as historical dissidents who suffered torture and incarceration, but I am putting Comrade Zuckerberg in the same context as authoritarian, narcissistic despots who created power monopolies to crush dissent. And just like the fictional thought police in Orwell's 1984, we've handed organised outrage mobs the power to remove people from society. There's no future for dissident voices on social media. Everything edgy, daring or mischievous will be cleansed. We're going to have to go back to old school methods like mailing lists and websites. Bookmark summit.news right now and sign up for the free newsletter there. You can also follow me on Telegram, link in description. Oh, the irony of a platform owned by Russians being one of the last sanctuaries for freedom of speech.
But Facebook's a private company, it can do what it likes.
Oh wow, leftists suddenly did a 180 and started believing there should be no regulation of big corporations right at around the same time that big corporations started silencing their political opposition. What a coincidence! Because giving a billionaire oligarch monopolist the power to decide who has free speech and what opinions you can express
is progressive.
If you value my message, if you don't want to see it silenced, I need your support. I've created a Subscribestar which is linked in the description below. Unlike Patreon, Subscribestar is run by people who actually support free speech. so it's never going to be deplatformed. And those of you who support me via YouTube may want to consider switching over to Subscribestar, given what's happening to channels like Sargon's, which just got completely demonetized. So again, if you think my message is important, if you want to vote with your dollar against deplatforming, hit the Subscribestar link in the box below. Because unlike Vice, I'm not getting a fat $250 million check from George Soros. And this isn't gonna stop at social media. Left-wing activist mobs are now pressuring banks and credit card companies to cut off access to people because of their political opinions. It's already happening. Numerous people have already lost banking services because of the thoughts inside their head. The communist Chinese-style social credit score is right around the corner. A cashless society where your grocery purchases get declined because some soy boy in Silicon Valley got offended by your tweets. If that's a dystopia you want to avoid, those of us fighting to stop it need your backup more than ever before.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. As Washington fusses over the Russia hoax for a third year in a row, a lot of other things are happening that don't get the attention they deserve. For example, the big tech companies have launched their fiercest attack yet on your right as an American to follow your conscience and to say what you believe. Unlike earlier generations of authoritarians, the tech moguls don't say any of this out loud. They're not honorable enough to state their intentions clearly. Instead, they drape censorship in the soothing banality of HR department cliches. Listen here to Mark Zuckerberg explain that the death of free speech in America is actually a really positive thing that we all need to get behind.
We're taking a more proactive role in making sure that all of our partners and developers use our services for good. We're very focused on making sure that our recommendations and discovery surfaces aren't highlighting groups where people are repeatedly sharing misinformation or harmful content, and we're working hard to completely remove groups if they exist primarily to violate our policies or do things that are dangerous.
Who knew fascism could be so chirpy? Groups that do things that are dangerous. What exactly does that mean? Dangerous like hurting other people? Or dangerous as in saying things that Mark Zuckerberg doesn't like or considers bad for business? Well, yesterday we found out Facebook released its latest enemies list. Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Paul Joseph Watson, Louis Farrakhan, Laura Loomer, all of them were designated dangerous individuals and banned from Facebook and from its subsidiary Instagram. Alex Jones's company InfoWars was banned as well and described as a dangerous organization. Didn't explain exactly how. How dangerous is InfoWars? Well, Facebook believes it's so dangerous that you can be banned from using the platform, Facebook, just for sharing its content unless you simultaneously denounce it. Let that penetrate for just one moment. Think about it just for a second. Mark Zuckerberg is not simply censoring opinions. He's prescribing which political opinions you're allowed to have, which conversations all of us in this country can have about America. Keep in mind that nobody voted for Mark Zuckerberg. He's 34 years old. He's completely cut off from reality. He's worth $72 billion. And yet he can single-handedly make our First Amendment irrelevant after 250 years. Here's the most amazing thing of all. Our media think that's great. Now, journalists are supposed to defend free speech. You would think that was their job since they make a living from it. But when corporate America issues an order, when Mark Zuckerberg says jump, their question is, how high, Mr. Zuckerberg? Listen to them celebrate Mark Zuckerberg and sell you out completely.
Why are they doing this now?
Well, it's a good question as to why they waited this long, but
yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so Alex Jones has been banned from Facebook for a long period of time, but now they banned him. They banned his little underling, Paul Joseph Watson.
Now that they kicked them off the platform, that's great for now, but it doesn't roll back the clock.
Well, you have also excesses in the First Amendment and the Second Amendment right now. You know, I don't think that the forefathers said, well, you can say, you know, all sorts of hateful things and spread it around the world, literally spread it through the internet.
I have no issue with it at all. I want them shut down. I want them silenced. I want them muted. I think they are horrible for our society.
I want them shut down. I want them silenced. I want them muted. But don't worry. These people aren't terrifying or anything. Don't kid yourself. It's not just Alex Jones they want silenced, muted, shut down. Recently, the Poynter Institute, which is a nonprofit that's supposed to support journalism, put out a list of what they called unreliable news outlets. Can you imagine unreliable? Self-awareness in short supply in the journalism business. But Poynter crafted this list with the help of the Southern Poverty Law Center. So you can imagine who made the list. The Washington Free Beacon, the Daily Caller, the Daily Signal, the Washington Examiner, basically everyone who's not CNN or MSNBC or precisely aligned with their politics. Poynter called for advertisers to blacklist and therefore bankrupt these news outlets. Crush them. Their fellow progressives applauded. As far as they're concerned, this is total war. What we're watching now in real time is this country become unfree. So the question is, who exactly is defending us in all of this? Us who might dissent from Mark Zuckerberg's view or think that NBC News maybe doesn't tell the whole truth all the time, or don't trust Mark Zuckerberg to control what we think. What about us? Who's standing up for us? Where are leaders in Congress? Where's the White House? Nowhere. As long as big tech isn't hassling them personally and directly, as long as their accounts remain open, they don't seem to care. They're fools. Will any of these people get reelected in a country where left-wing tech companies control the terms of political debate? Can you really win a presidential election if Google opposes you? No, you can't. Not a chance. Not right now. Without free speech, there is no democracy. It's time to stop lying about that.
Guess who's a white supremacist now? Stephen Fry. Why? He did the OK hand sign. But Stephen Fry's a lifelong liberal, atheist, environmentalist, Labour-supporting LGBT activist. Doesn't matter, he did this. But that whole thing was a contrivance of a bunch of nihilistic, autistic, 4chan Spurglord trolls in a hysterical mainstream media that took them seriously by legitimising their autism in return for rage bait revenue clicks. Doesn't matter, he did this. Guess who's the new face of the far right? This 14-year-old girl on YouTube. Says who? BuzzFeed. Must be true then. The writer of the hit piece on the 14-year-old girl, BuzzFeed's Joe Bernstein, says,
there are many more people who simply want to preserve the ability to be bigoted on private platforms.
But wait, isn't he the same guy who literally said, kill a straight white man on your way to work tomorrow? Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's life when you work at BuzzFeed.
According to BuzzFeed, this 14-year-old girl's edgy videos are among the most shocking things ever and represent a moral crisis. But celebrating an 11-year-old drag queen kid and encouraging people to stick dollar bills in his panties, that's wholesome.
There it is again.
So a teenage girl is radicalizing young people and driving them towards political violence, while major left-wing newspapers openly incite political violence. It's okay when we do it. Oh, but it's just a milkshake. Yeah, if Owen Jones and Anna Soubry were getting doused with milkshakes, you'd all be wetting the bed like it was the return of the Third Reich.
Never stop punching Nazis.
Never stop lifting weights. Seems pretty low energy. Unlike Turbo Force, the ultimate energy boost without the come down. Link in description. Microsoft is set to release a new version of Word that uses artificial intelligence to make your writing politically correct. You know how annoying it is when the iPhone corrects fucking to ducking every time you try and type it out? Imagine that for an entire essay. Rumour has it that every new purchase of Word will come with a voucher for a year's supply of Starbucks soy lattes. Still seems like a waste of money, unlike my Subscribe Star. Link in description. Western motherhood in 2019. Taking a break from your own 4-year-old daughter to spend more time in strip clubs. Western masculinity in 2019. Throwing thousands of beta books at e-thoughts while you slip into a slow-motion diabetic coma.
God, life is fucked.
ISIS extremists are using Instagram to promote jihad. Still, at least my dangerous selfies have been deleted forever.
Paul Joseph Watson.
Censorship, a weapon of tyrants used to oppress populations since the dawn of history. Widely recognized as inherently evil ever since. Until about 2018, when Western leftists and Silicon Valley started using it to their advantage and it suddenly became virtuous. What a coincidence. Simply because they labelled everyone on the receiving end a Nazi.
In 1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact."
We handed a hysterical cult that demands total obedience and punishes those who resist, with deplatforming, public shaming, violence and arrest, the power to run society. Whoops.
It's been really shocking.
Imagine a cashless society where your grocery purchase gets declined because some pencil neck in Silicon Valley got offended by your tweets. You just imagined our collective future.
Because I want to fit in.
And if the threat of the outrage mob doesn't turn any remaining holdouts into NPCs, why not just yell and swear at them?
The planet's on fucking fire. Grow the fuck up, motherfuckers.
I've always been skeptical of man-made global warming.
You're a terrible person!
But after Bill Nye set fire to a plastic globe and dropped the F-bomb a bunch of times, I've totally changed my mind. Speaking of greenhouse gases, Notre Dame Cathedral is about to be turned into a giant greenhouse. Fuck it, why not just bulldoze the whole place and turn it into one big garden centre? The UK is about to vote in the EU parliamentary elections, 3 years after voting to leave the EU.
Can't stop thinking about how yesterday a white girl in my class said that she's planning on never having kids because she doesn't want to create any more white people.
141,000 likes.
Impressive. Very nice.
So basically, neo-Nazis are using 14-year-old YouTubers' secret hand gestures and PJW's dangerous selfies to take over society. And the only way we can combat them is with milkshakes, 11-year-old drag queen kids, and total censorship of the internet. Or the media and the left is run by a neurotic cult that constantly has to fan the flames of hysteria to amass more power and generate revenue. You be the judge.
Welcome to the Echo Chamber. I'm your host, Dr. Mac. In today's news, a terrible terrorist attack has taken place, and in typical right-wing fashion, certain Christian publications are blaming America's lack of faith in Christianity, the way they do for every tragedy.
What outlets are doing that?
I don't know, some right-winger said it like 10 years ago, so it's a thing we make fun of them for now. Anyway, this kind of thing is obviously ridiculous. Tragedies don't occur because people don't believe in God. They occur because people aren't being PC enough.
What?
When you say things that aren't PC, you're actually just upholding structures of privilege, which are what convince those at the top of the power hierarchy to commit acts of violence. Therefore, not being PC leads to tragedies. See?
Then, wouldn't you expect white men to commit more acts of terror?
More? White men commit the most acts of terror.
Per capita?
Pre-Carpenter?
Per capita.
Per capital? Das Kapital?
Per capita.
Sorry, I don't speak right-wing dog whistle.
Ugh. Okay, so let's say it was statistically honest to say white men commit the most terror acts, which it isn't. You would say that's because society privileges them.
Yes, being privileged is what leads people to commit acts of violence.
Then why do Muslims commit terror acts?
Because not being privileged is what leads people to commit acts of violence.
What? That doesn't even make sense.
I don't see what's so difficult to understand about it.
So literally no matter what happens, you're gonna claim it's because of white privilege.
Has this not been made clear yet?
It's almost as if you blame everything on privilege, which you claim white people are the engineers of, so that no matter what happens to anyone, white folks can be blamed for it.
I mean, not everything.
Oh, really? What don't you blame white people for?
The weather, natural disasters. I don't blame white people for that. Those are tragedies I don't believe are caused by people not being PC enough.
Ugh, at least it's something.
Wait, hold on a moment. This just in, a massive hurricane appears to be forming off the coast of Florida. One thing's for sure, these kinds of storms will only stop forming when old white men stop destroying the environment.
looks like a job for. You shouldn't do that, man!
Oh, thank goodness. You're here to protect me.
Oh no, I shouldn't have to protect you from being mugged. Men just shouldn't mug.
Oh no! It's you shouldn't do that, man! Here to tell us that we shouldn't do something.
Why does society tell banks to protect their safes when the reality is bank robbers just shouldn't rob?
Good question.
I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't do that.
Anyway, this new self-defense weapon is ideal for women to protect themselves against rapists and other predators. It's going to save countless lives.
Women shouldn't protect themselves from rapists. Men just shouldn't rape.
Well, duh. I mean, no one's arguing that. But they do have to protect themselves because people are terrible and the world sucks. And this is an invention which is going to make more of them safe.
But you shouldn't have to make the world more safe.
That doesn't make any sense. And if that's the case, why do you even go around saying rapists shouldn't rape? After all, you shouldn't have to tell rapists not to rape. They should just know not to do it.
But all in a day's work for you shouldn't do that, man.
Affirmative action. Everyone's favorite, non-controversial topic of discussion. Those in opposition to affirmative action argue that it's wrong to discriminate against white students by holding them to a higher standard when evaluating their college applications. Whereas proponents of affirmative action respond that we need to help minorities gain their footing in a society which has been historically unjust to them. But what if their premise was flawed? What if affirmative action didn't help minority students advance in life or society? What if it actually hurt them? That's right, there's data suggesting that affirmative action has led to higher dropout rates for black students, has resulted in them disproportionately occupying the bottom of their classes, and has even isolated them from their fellow student. This is due to a phenomenon known as mismatch. What is mismatch? It's basically when students can't keep up with the workload and don't fit in at a prestigious university because they aren't qualified to be there and were only given entry due to their minority status. For example, let's imagine there's a young African-American man named Joseph who scores a 30 on his ACT. There are many perfectly respectable schools which would admit someone with his score, and he could have a wonderfully accomplished tenure at any of them. But he opts instead to go to Harvard, because affirmative action qualifies him to gain entry, despite the fact that he would have probably needed a 32 or higher to get in without affirmative action. Good for Joseph, right? Well, maybe not. At Harvard, Joseph now has to compete with students possessing more impressive academic abilities than his own. This not only increases the likelihood that he'll be at the bottom of his class, he's actually less likely to build friendships, because the data show that students are less socially integrated on campuses where they aren't properly academically matched. As you may have guessed, this recipe for disaster means he's more likely to drop out once the program begins moving too quickly for him. And according to the numbers, once he drops out, he's unlikely to re-enroll. Not at Harvard, not at one of the less prestigious schools he qualified for, not anywhere. Had affirmative action not shoehorned Joseph into a more rigorous program than he had qualified for, he would be more likely to have a degree in his desired field. Competing with similarly matched students would increase his likelihood of having a successful academic career, but unfortunately for Joseph, he was misplaced. And while he could have graduated summa cum laude at a more appropriate institution, now all he has is a high school diploma and some debt. Affirmative action. And black and Hispanic folks aren't the only minorities being hurt by these policies. Asian students experience difficulties due to affirmative action as well, but in a very different way. See, proponents of affirmative action always seem to leave out the inconvenient detail that creating demographic parity in higher education means ensuring there are less Asians attending prestigious universities. You heard that right. Affirmative action intentionally and actively excludes Asian students from higher education. According to data from the AAMC, if you have a GPA of 3.5 and an MCAT score of 30, you have a 91% chance of being admitted to medical school. If you're black. If you're Hispanic, your odds fall to 79%. If you're white, you have a 55% chance of being admitted. And if you're Asian, that falls to just 50%. So remember, despite the way it's often portrayed, The affirmative action debate isn't black people against white people. It's affirmative action against everyone. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you find that FreedomToons is producing valuable content, please consider donating at one of the links in the description. We really need your help so that we can continue to pump out the comedic and educational content on a weekly basis. Thank you so much, and God bless. Misgendering isn't free speech. It removes the right of trans people to exist.
I'm not calling you Zim, Zer, or Z.
No! Finally, I've been cleared of all charges. This is the greatest day of my life. Nothing can bring me down, not even the fake news media.
Okay, Mr. President, there's no easy way to say this, but I am a doctor. She's a doctor, folks. You've contracted windmill cancer?
I knew I should have worn windscreen.
Oh no, it wasn't from the wind. It was from the noises that the windmills make.
Who could have known something right in front of my face could give me cancer? There's a lot we just don't know about windmills. And it's very plausible that the president could have gotten cancer from one.
I don't like them putting noises in the windmills that give the freaking president cancer! This is Big Windmill back at it with their typical schemes to get the president killed because he isn't subsidizing their green energy initiatives! You know what else is green, Joe? Gay frogs!
Those racist white Nigerians may have beat me, put a noose around my neck, called me the N-word, but there's one thing they can never take from me. My Subway sandwich.
This man is innocent.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting this content on freedomtoons.tv/hashtag/donate. Thank you so much.
I'm a brilliant intellectual. As am I. The two of us are sick and tired of dealing with troglodytes and have moved into a bomb shelter so we don't catch the stupid. To stay sharp, we spend our days pursuing the pastime of true intellectuals, debunking YouTube videos. We are the Debunkers. So what should we debunk this week? Scroll back up. I saw a video entitled, "A Better Way to Tax the Rich." If the answer isn't, by not doing it, then it's going to need a debunking.
This is a chart of the wealth of every single American household. That includes cars, houses, yachts, jewelry, and even cold hard cash. It also includes things we owe other people, like student loans. So let's take a quick tour of American household wealth. We can start over here, where we see people who owe way more than they have. As we move further right, we can see, oh, that's me. And there's my doctor, who owns an expensive home. And there's former heavyweight boxer Mike Tyson. But when we get to the very richest people in the world, oh hey, it's Beyonce. We can zoom out so far that this chart looks like a stick, and we still can't see the top of their wealth. Because these people are so much wealthier than the rest of us.
Well, given that debt is included, that would mean a person with a single dollar is above a significant percentage of the population, meaning this isn't an accurate measurement of quality of life, or even necessarily poverty.
In other words, this chart doesn't just show wealth, it shows the staggering wealth inequality we have in America. But recently, politicians have been talking about an idea that's never been done before in America. To even out wealth, we should tax it.
Revolutionary! Where have I heard that before? Also, one has to demonstrate that income inequality is an issue to be solved in the first place. According to the data, not only are the rich getting richer, but the poor are getting richer as well. The rich simply get rich more quickly, hence why the inequality is created. But if everyone's quality of life is increasing over time, why is this an issue? Yes, and while one might argue that the proper level of taxation could result in everyone becoming more rich at the same rate, they would have quite a bit of work ahead of them in the way of proving that this would not only be the case, but that wealth would continue to grow at an equivalent rate, neither of which is even remotely borne out by the data.
In January, Senator Elizabeth Warren proposed something called a wealth tax.
Thanks, I hate it.
This was a big deal, because this doesn't typically get taxed.
And yet the top 10% of income earners still pay 90% of the income tax. Amazing, isn't it?
Most of the taxes we pay only happen when money changes hands, like when we earn money or spend money. But according to Warren, here's the problem with that. This bar represents my wealth, and this is my friend's wealth. I think he owns a yacht.
Yachts are a human right.
But because both of us have the same job and earn about the same amount of money, our income gets taxed about the same.
Which is obviously terrible. He should be forced to liquidate his assets and give some percentage of it to the government. Yes, also, if you and your friend are making the same amount of money and yet he has a higher net worth than you, perhaps this is because he manages his wealth more responsibly than you do? Why should he be punished for that? If you spend all of your money frivolously while he denies himself short-term gratification in order to save and invest, why should he be punished for that? Why would we want to disincentivize this kind of behavior?
Two people who may have the same income but are in wildly different economic circumstances.
So to fix it, Warren wants to tax the actual wealth people have, but only for the very, very rich.
Unbelievable. The top 1% is already paying more in income tax than the bottom 90% combined. They are pulling more than their own weight, and yet you seem obsessed with finding new ways to punish them and take even more of what they have rather than doing your job and getting spending under control. How selfish of them to pay the vast majority of the taxes in this country but keep the assets they've purchased with what was left over after they paid said taxes. Don't they know there are hundreds of superfluous government programs in need of being dreamt up and funded? Indeed. Do you know how this ends? It ends with the rich investing in other countries instead of ours because any assets they own in the US will be subject to this tax.
Here's her proposal. All the wealth above this line, $50 million, would be taxed at 2% each year. All the wealth above this line, $1 billion, would be taxed at 3%. So if you have $40 million, you'd pay nothing. If you have $60 million, you'd pay nothing on your first $50 million, but 2% on the $10 million after that.
Oh, the government is introducing a new tax which is only going to marginally affect the wealthy alone? Where have I heard that before? I'm sure it won't expand. Yes, also interesting how this plan, which was just pitched moments ago as a method of fighting income inequality, would only consist of taking a minuscule percentage of what is owned by the extremely rich. This plan would either do nothing to fight against income inequality, or an aggressive expansion is planned.
Or $200,000. And if you have $2 billion, you'd pay about $49 million.
Which the government would spend in 7 minutes. No, I'm not joking. In fact, they could take all of that $2 billion and it would last them less than 5 hours. That's how out of control government spending is. So maybe instead of whining about how much the rich have, we should be concerned with how much the government spends and how much debt it's saddling us with, which is the inevitable result of their aversion to financial responsibility regardless of what our tax rates are.
So what would happen if we imposed Senator Warren's tax?
The rich would do everything they could to find legal loopholes and invest less in our economy. Wealth creation would be disincentivized. The program would very likely begin to expand in order to tax other groups, and if the revenue brought in was anything more than negligible, the government would blow it on needless spending and possibly even expand to the point where it would now become dependent on this new tax. And there would be no net benefit, but less money would be circulating in the private sector. Am I in the ballpark here?
Well, only the richest 0.05% of Americans would pay this tax.
For now.
But in 2016, the government could have raised about $200 billion from it.
Which they would have blown in less than a month.
That could pay for a plan that makes public college tuition free 3 times over.
Ignoring the implication that our university system wouldn't be sabotaged by state funding the same way K through 12 was, why is the onus on the private sector to support new state programs when the government is the entity which fails to spend responsibly? You don't think it's possible that a government which spends $4 trillion per year and has a $1 trillion annual deficit might just have $200 billion worth of money it's spending unnecessarily, which could be diverted to a program as supposedly beneficial as college for all?
It could pay for all federal food assistance programs, like food stamps, 2 times over.
Yay! The war on poverty would expand and further cripple the underclass.
It could get close to cutting child poverty by 60%.
Assuming the Bennett-Brown plan is in any way practical or would achieve its stated goal.
These are massive programs that would help millions of people.
Well, if the government could do all of these amazing things with $200 billion, imagine what they could do with $4 trillion. Oh wait, the federal government spends that, and it does it so irresponsibly that we have a net deficit, and it needs to take even more of our wealth despite the fact that the current budget is nearly 1/4 of GDP overall. Clearly, the solution is to hand over even more of our economy.
Hey folks, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy the content that we're producing here at FreedomToons and would like to see us continue with the weekly uploads, please consider donating at subscribestar.com/FreedomToons. Or if you need to use PayPal, at freedomtoons.tv/hashtag/donate.
After all, you don't want that money being taxed, do you?
Welcome to the Echo Chamber. I'm your host, Dr. Mac. Today we're going to be speaking with a young man by the name of Timmy, who is facing a very difficult reality many young people in this nation are exposed to. You see, Timmy recently graduated high school and has been forced to take out hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans in order to afford university. Timmy, tell us a bit about yourself.
So, I recently finished up high school out in the suburb I grew up in and moved into the inner city so I could attend a university.
Whoa. Hold on. You moved into the inner city?
Yeah, well that's where the school is.
Timmy, that's gentrification. You can't just move into a predominantly minority-infested neighborhood and price the locals out of the market.
Did you just say infested?
Timmy, when you move into an impoverished area, you bring your economic privilege with you and exercise it at the expense of the downtrodden. Prices inevitably increase and the natives of the area can't compete with your wealth and they have to leave.
What? But doesn't the community also stand to benefit from me bringing my money into the area?
Timmy, that's ridiculous.
Fine, I guess you're right. I'll just move out of this city then.
What? You can't do that. That's white flight.
Huh?
Timmy, the community stands to benefit from your money. You can't just take it and leave like some kind of bigot. That drives prices down and increases poverty in the area.
What? That's insane. When we left the cities, you called it white flight. Now we're moving back in and you call it gentrification. Where are white people supposed to live?
They shouldn't. Hey folks, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and find what FreedomToons is doing valuable, please consider donating on subscribestar.com/FreedomToons. Thank you so much. They feel like Twitter is silencing them, and people don't know how to react to this new thing. Like the internet is this new thing that we just got, okay? And we're a bunch of dumb monkeys, and we've got this multi-billion-dollar infrastructure that just lets us shoot our dumb monkey thoughts out into the ether, and whoosh, it's just there. It's just there. And we're still figuring it out.
And Joe, that's word for word how I first pitched Twitter
to the developers.
Nice.
In 2015, you sent a SWAT team to raid the home of a 6-year-old girl because she had tweeted out "Pink is for girls" from her mother's phone.
And I'm sure that was a mistake, Tim.
We admit we need to get better at this.
I understand that. But in 2017, when transgender activists tweeted out blueprints for the White House, along with a detailed plan to assassinate the president in a political coup, your only response was to ban people for hate speech when they condemned this behavior.
And Tim, I don't have that case right in front of me, but in the full context of the situation, I'm sure there were good reasons.
Right, but do you think if you took a chimp, okay, and you put a chimp on Twitter, it would become transgender? Like it could actually become the first transgender monkey that we know of on Twitter. Jamie, can you pull that up?
Tim, at Twitter, what we want is a free and open forum. And we know that when conservatives are allowed to have their own ideas about gender, free thought can't happen.
We can assure you there is no bias against any political group or opinion on our website.
So why is it that when I tweet "where all the honey's at" with a selfie, there are no girls in my DMs or replies?
That's a problem that we need to work to solve.
Have you ever tried DMT?
Hey, this is Tim Pool. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy what FreedomToons is doing, please subscribe, upvote, and donate at the link in the description to help them keep churning out weekly content. Okay, now where's my $500?
I have $50.
What? FreedomToons sucks. Don't donate. Downvote this video. Seamus is a fraud.
Tim, no!
I'm a brilliant intellectual. As am I. The two of us are sick and tired of dealing with troglodytes and have moved into a bomb shelter so we don't catch the stupid. To stay sharp, we spend our days pursuing the pastime of true intellectuals, debunking YouTube videos. We are the Debunkers.
Any videos for us to debunk today?
Oh my, I found one called Ben Shapiro's love for white nationalists backfires.
Oh my, who published it?
The Young Turks.
Oh, this should be like shooting fish in a barrel.
We're going to show the entire video and do a point-by-point takedown as per usual, correct?
As long as it doesn't take Anna 8 minutes to wrap up her virtue-signaling rambling about why racism is bad and get to the point about Shapiro.
Iowa's Republican Representative Steve King seems to be emboldened by Trump's transparent bigotry.
Just get to the point about Ben Shapiro!
But it took a lot for Ben Shapiro, a conservative Jewish commentator, to finally accept it. Now, Shapiro has been making excuses for King's behavior, and his go-to tactic is to brush off accusations of racism as nothing more than libs trying to silence those they disagree with.
Ah, yes, because when do they ever do that? It's almost as if crying racist causes the accusation to lose its meaning.
Indeed. Also, perhaps this is the first time Shapiro renounced him, because this is the first time he's been presented with actual proof of him being racist, rather than an accusation alone. Imagine that.
Are some people quick to label others as racist? Sure.
No, not some people. The exact kinds of people who were criticizing Steve King. This is kind of an important detail. When the same person who calls everyone racist finds an actual racist, it's their fault if no one believes them, not the fault of skeptics.
Yes, and when you accuse anyone and everyone of racism, it's bound to be the case that at least one of them will eventually be proven to be racist. This was simply a matter of probability.
But Shapiro's knee-jerk reaction to automatically assume that there's some sort of left-wing conspiracy to label non-racists as racist is absolutely ridiculous.
Look at that, a shifting of the burden of proof. The left shouldn't have to prove that the people we call racist are racist. You should have to prove that we're lying.
Yes, got to love that she considers it to be a conspiracy theory that the left calls people who aren't racist racist in order to shut them down. Hope she comes out against those round earthers in the next video.
And so when you read the headlines today, and when you see people immediately jumping to Steve King is a racist, or what Steve King said here anyway is racist, just do yourself a favor and do your own research on this stuff.
This is the most damning clip they could find of him? Him telling you to do your own research?
Isn't it funny how he tells everyone else to do their research?
Oh, how hilarious. Do your own research.
When he didn't bother to follow his own advice. Look, we all get things wrong time to time.
Speak for yourself.
And I don't judge people too harshly if they misspeak or get a fact wrong. It's all right.
Well, glass houses and all.
But there's a wealth of evidence that proves King has problematic views on race. I just shared some of them with you. Shapiro was either too blind to see it or didn't bother to look it up at all.
Yes, once again, it's almost as if when you call anyone and everyone who disagrees with you racist, people are reluctant to take your claims seriously and will just begin writing you off.
Here he is defending King again in 2017.
We attempt to be fair-minded and objective and honest as we can be here on the program in line with conservative principles. And I'm not just going to bend over backwards and say that the guy said something racist when we can all look at the tape ourselves and determine whether who's lying here. Is it King or is it the media who are lying about him?
Now, to give Shapiro some credit, he changed his mind following King's interview with The Time.
Oh, you mean when the actual evidence came out and was presented to him?
Sort of. He essentially updated an old post on the Daily Wire about King, where he interpreted the representative's comments about how we, quote, can't restore our civilization with somebody else's babies as possibly racist or just a big misunderstanding. In the update, Shapiro writes, quote, as I stated in the article, there were two ways to interpret his statements. His later open embrace of the term white nationalists and white supremacist suggests the first interpretation that he's racist was not as implausible as it seemed at the time.
Yes, he changed his mind with new information. I fail to see the problem here.
So again, back in 2017, Ben Shapiro thought that it was not plausible that Steve King was racist.
Yes, because he hadn't seen the evidence of it in 2017. Goodness.
Even though all those examples were floating around on the internet. Again, look, credit to Shapiro for changing his mind.
You keep paying lip service to giving the man credit for changing his mind, but immediately revert to disparaging him for not having the right opinion before he changed his mind. Kind of missing the point, aren't we?
Really, I mean it. I mean, he probably should have believed Andrew Anglin, the neo-Nazi founder of the Daily Stormer, when he said, quote, Steve King is basically an open white nationalist at this point.
Something tells me that Shapiro doesn't read the Daily Stormer, and that if he did come across this quote, he wouldn't be inclined to take the word of a neo-Nazi as truth.
But then again, maybe he never came across that quote because he allowed his personal feelings about Steve King to get in the way of the facts that are obvious to everyone else.
If that were the case, then why would he have changed his mind?
Didn't have time to do his research. Maybe that's a possibility, but seems like it was more about his own personal feelings getting in the way of the facts.
It could be for this perfectly plausible reason, or it could be because Ben Shapiro loves white nationalists.
Ah, now you don't endorse this grand conspiracy theory that the left smears people they disagree with as racist, do you?
Hey folks, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the Debunkers analysis of this video and you find that FreedomToons produces valuable content, please donate on Subscribestar so that we can continue with the weekly uploads. Thank you so much.
We understand we live in a dangerous world. The enemies of freedom are real, and we need to be ready to defend all of our freedoms.
Freedom to me is the ability to live how I see fit to live.
That's exactly what this country was founded on, was freedom. It is in danger.
The elites and their ideology are destroying this country. We're losing the America that we all love.
Gun rights are under assault.
It's important that we fight for our freedom.
We're at a critical stage.
We are freedom's safest place.
the Second Amendment. After freedom of speech and religion, it was the first thing our founding fathers thought of. That is the pinnacle of freedom.
It's about my safety, and I'm going to fight for my safety.
I love the freedom that I have. I'm appreciative of the NRA for fighting for that freedom.
And they're on the front lines doing something to defend our rights and the voice of the people.
It protects law-abiding citizens.
The work that the NRA does is important, preserving freedom and liberty.
Keeping people informed, raising awareness about what's going on in the country.
They are the protector of our freedoms.
The NRA stands for freedom.
In the face of this relentless onslaught of gun control schemes, you're the reason the Second Amendment still stands. You're the tip of the spear.
You're the ones that make it possible for us every day to defend this freedom.
They're fighting for our fundamental freedoms, and I can't think of anything more important than that.
One person to politicians in Washington is nothing, but together, as members of the NRA, we actually can have a voice.
We must lead the way, and we must save our freedom.
We're going to fight for the America we believe in. This is a fight for our freedom.
We need to reawaken the passion and pride and unity of purpose that made this country so special.
We're the National Rifle Association of America. We're born to fight, and we're not going anywhere.
Stand up if you want to protect your right to protect yourself. Stand up if you believe in freedom. Stand up and every day speak out. And we're going to stand for freedom and fight. We will not be silent.